Alright, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. I am the instructor for the Rankin Technical College Wentzville Application and Web Development, or AWD program. And what I have done over the last few weeks is I've gone through and made approximately 50 videos, about 25, between 20 and 30, for the AWD, Application and Web Development 1000 Web Development Technologies class. I think it was around 27 videos that I made for the Murox HTML5 and CSS3 4th edition textbook. And I made these based on the PowerPoint presentations for the 20 chapters in the book. And like I said, I made about 27 lectures, videos. Then I went over to the other book that's used for the course, which is Murox JavaScript and jQuery 2nd edition, and there's 18 chapters, and I made about between 20 and 25, probably closer to 20 videos on that. So we've got somewhere between 40 and 50 videos, let's say, that I've created so far. And what I decided to do next was to start from scratch and build a website based on what is taught in this book. And then I went in and did the first chapter, and after doing the first chapter, I started thinking to myself, you know, maybe you've heard this. I remember hearing a story or something about this many years ago, about what's the best way to teach your kid to swim. And there's different opinions, okay? My dad grew up on a farm, and he once told me how, he said his grandfather, now this was him kidding, but he said his grandfather, or his father I should say, taught him to swim by taking him out in the middle of the lake that was near their house and throwing him in the water. Now, I don't believe he really did that, all right? And I have no idea what kind of swimmer my father actually was, all right? But at the same time, I know that with my daughters, when we started them swimming, we started them in kid swimming lessons when they were maybe, I don't know, one was maybe a year old and the other one was maybe 2 years old, and that was before my youngest daughter was born. But the two of them were so close in age, we decided to try to keep them together. And what did they do in there? Well, they had them go in the kiddie pool, and they basically got used to that for a while. Then they brought them into the regular pool, but they kept them in the shallow end. And then eventually they moved him into the deeper end, and eventually they got him to jump off the diving board, etc. Well, what does this have to do with anything? Well, what it has to do with is I have already created a lecture based on Chapter 1 of the HTML5 and CSS3 4th edition book by Murox, where I started to go into creating this website. And then I went back and kind of reflected on it and thought, you know what, I was kind of pushing you out in the middle of the, or putting you out in the middle of the lake and pushing you in. So I'm going to back up and take it slow. Now, this is stuff right from the syllabus for the course that this class is involved with. I'm not going to read a bit on it, other than to say the focus is to build student abilities and confidence through hands-on exercise and real-world projects. This real-world project is what I'm going to be creating in here. So then I went in and I looked at, well, what are we supposed to learn in this course? What are the outcomes? Hand code and utilize HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and modern JavaScript libraries. Okay. Well, we're going to do that. Plan, analyze, design, develop, and deploy websites. Kind of where we are right now. We also want mobile responsive websites. We want to be able to format text and do all this other good stuff that's in here. Once we get this built, we want to be able to explain search engine optimization. These are not in order. In fact, if they were, I'd put the last one first. Utilize Git as a distributed version control system for software development. So we want this to be a web-based course where in the end, we're going to give you a real-world project and have you learn how to set it up using Git, hand coding, using HTML, CSS, JavaScript libraries, and Bootstrap, But before that, we want to be able to plan, analyze, design, deploy, and plan, analyze, and design our website, make it mobilely responsive, and do some of this other good stuff. So I've shown you this before. You're going to see it again. You're going to hear about it again from me. I would say that if you're starting in this class, the first thing I would do would be to go in and look at this. Again, these are all Brad Traversy. There's about a dozen videos here. The first one is Traversy's Git and GitHub Crash Course for Beginners. Now, even before you do that, and there's the URL, all right, I'm just going to leave that up there. But before you even do that, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go and look at this, using version control in VS Code. So I want to learn about visuals. I want to learn about Git and GitHub and what they are. All right. Then I want to go in and learn about what Visual Studio is. All right. Then I kind of want to learn how to use these two together. Then I want to go in and I want to learn about HTML, an HTML crash course, then a CSS crash course. So I'm changing around this a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start myself by watching Traversy's Git and GitHub crash course for beginners. It's 32 minutes long. After I watch that, and I've watched it several times, between this and the actual Git site, I'm going to go out and walk you through how to use Git. All right? Then I'm going to do a similar thing, but walk you through and explain to you how to use some of the stuff we'll need to do for Visual Studio. Then I'm going to go back probably to this article and try to put them together and explain how you use Git and how you use Git within Visual Studio Code. All right. Then I'm not going to go back and give you an overview on HTML. I'm not going to go back and give you an overview on CSS. I'm going to start building the site. All right. The site that I've decided to do is based on a mythical gym, G-Y-M. And I tried to come up with all sorts of good names for it. And I came over here, Gym and Exercise Vocabulary Word List. And there are over 100 terms here. And I'm going to look through this and see if I come up with something else. All right? Because I came up with the Slim Jim, which, if I ever tried to put this out on the system, I could get sued by the makers of the Slim Jim sausage stick. And I wanted something to kind of rhyme, sort of sing-songy. And I had a couple of other ones, but none of them were really very good. So I'm going to look through this list and maybe a couple of other ones, see if I can come up with a better name. But again, I would strongly suggest, I've shown this before, all right? Mr. Traversy has a good dozen, and there's really more than that, but I would start by going through and looking at these 4 videos. Git and GitHub Crash Course for Beginners, Visual Studio Intro and Setup, HTML Crash Course for Absolute Beginners, and CSS Crash Course for Absolute Beginners. We'll look at those, and as we get into it, you'll notice that the next 3 videos that are shown here on lines 13, 16, and 19 are all on CSS. Okay? Then we get in and we start talking about responsive design, using Flexbox, using Grid. Then we get into Bootstrap, then a JavaScript, and a jQuery. Now, this guy isn't magical, Mr. Traversy, but he does what I consider to be a superlative job of taking topics that can be quite complex and making them easier to understand. So again, I'm going to go back and rewatch starting from his Git and GitHub crash course. Then I'm going to go back and rewatch his Visual Studio Code. Then myself, just because I want to pick up little things, the HTML crash course and the CSS crash course. All right, so that's where I'm going to be. I'll come back after I've done that, start putting this hopefully into action and building our website. All right.